Welcome to the next installment of the Miami Group Sierra Club Virtual Backpack Series. Here's Lighten Up, tips that you can use to lighten your backpack and make your adventures less physically demanding and hopefully more enjoyable. I was thinking back, my first section hike with my daughter of the AT, it's about 100 miles or so. Pretty new to backpacking and was carrying probably upwards of 45 plus pound pack. Now that did include quite a bit of food because we were too naive to know that you can actually resupply frequently on the AT. But even so, that's a pretty heavy pack. And as we observed the other through hikers who were coming through, we quickly learned that shedding some of that weight makes backpacking a whole lot more enjoyable. Before we get into the meat of the topic, we do want to introduce ourselves, the presenters and the folks moderating tonight's webinar. My name is Barry Randall. I've been backpacking and other outdoor activities for many years, and currently I'm the chairperson of the Miami Group Sierra Club Outings Committee. So we plan and lead different outings, backpacking trips being one of them, for all different skill levels. Brian, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us. My name is Brian Wolf. I've met some of you guys if you've been by Roads, Rivers, and Trails. I'm co-owner there, and we're celebrating 10 years this year. And a big part of our mission is just continued education and inspiration for more people to get outside. So I'm happy to join the Sierra Club seminars, and also look forward to being able to do more of those types of events in person. So thank you for joining.
Okay, Nancy?
Welcome, everybody. Thanks, Barry. My name is Nancy Ball, also known as Crunch. That's my trail name. I've been camping and hiking my whole life, and I've been backpacking for about 17 years now, and leading trips since around 2005 to places literally all around the world. This past year, I launched my business, planning and leading adventure trips, and it's called Summit Trek and Travel, as well as being an outings leader for the Sierra Club and an instructor for this backpacking school. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. I'm glad that you're all here. Denise?
Nancy. Hi, my name is Denise Tingle, and my trail name is Kitty Longstocking. I've been camping and hiking and backpacking for 45 plus years. I am the hiking chair leader for the Miami Group Sierra Club, along with an instructor for the backpacking school. In addition, I do cycling rides and backpacking trips. My passion, of course, is backpacking, cycling, and I just love the outdoors. So glad everyone could join us tonight. We got an interesting topic this evening that I know we have quite a group on here tonight, so it must be a very interesting subject for us. So welcome, everyone. Brian?
Okay, so we're going to start out with a poll. You want to just flip through a few more clicks, Nancy, and just build out the poll here. So asking basically, what do you feel is important in reducing your pack weight? We've given you a few options here. Option A, and you can select as many as you feel are appropriate. Know what everything in your pack weighs. Be prepared to be uncomfortable, because suffering builds character. Choose multi-purpose items when possible. Build your camping skills and knowledge. Spend lots of money, and keep things simple. So we'll take a few minutes here and just pick all of those that you think are applicable. And Nancy, we really need to get that Jeopardy music so we can play that when we do these polls.
Yep, these there we go, these long silences, and I muted myself. I actually was singing, but no, sorry, you all missed that.
Oh, we did miss that.
Yeah,
oh.
Next time.
Yeah, next time. Okay, we got most people in. We got about 90% in. Okay, and it looks like people are pretty in line with at least my thinking. So certainly knowing what everything in your pack weighs is important, and we're going to talk actually a bit more about that. You don't necessarily need to be uncomfortable. There is a relationship in general, I believe, between weight, cost, and comfort. So those three things are kind of intertwined to some degree. But both that and the spend lots of money, no, you don't have to be uncomfortable and you don't have to spend lots of money. But there is a relationship between those things. Sometimes you do trade off some comfort or you spend more money in order to save weight. Multi-purpose items, absolutely, whenever possible. Building skills and knowledge. There's some things that, it's actually better to know something than to have some fancy lightweight piece of gear. Sometimes knowledge can save you from having the gear at all. And then keeping things simple, that's true as well. So good answers, and let's start going through the material. I gotta move this out of the way here. So these principles are taken from backpackinglight.com. Just throughout here, you'll see a couple of references to some source materials, and that's one that I've found pretty useful. But the first item there is take inventory, weigh everything. Most of us at some point weigh our packs, but really if you want to dig into reducing your pack weight seriously, you really have to know what the individual items weigh. So we'll get into that a little bit more. We talked about simplifying. In general, features add weight. So when you look at packs and tents and pretty much any piece of gear, the more features it has, generally the more weight it has. So the simpler you can make things, generally the lighter they're going to be. Limit just-in-case thinking. Early on, a lot of people carry a lot of gear, unnecessary gear, just because they're afraid that something may happen. So it's kind of contingency thinking. You certainly want a certain amount of that so that you're safe, but taken to an extreme, you can start carrying too much stuff that ultimately isn't going to be needed. So, for example, if you think, well, what if I fall in a river and get soaked? Do I need another pair of clothes? Well, most people that I know hike with only one pair of clothes, the clothes they're wearing, and because the likelihood of falling in a river during a river crossing is pretty remote to begin with, and if it should happen, then there's probably other things you can do. You can just hike wet and you'll eventually dry out because you're wearing quick dry clothes, or you can put on your rain pants instead of your soaking wet pants. So there's other options. So just limit that contingency thinking to things that are actually likely to happen. Focus on a core function of each piece of gear. And it's looking for the lightest piece of gear that meets your need. And it's really your need that's important here because everyone's comfort level is going to be different and different ways. So someone's comfort level sleeping is going to be different than the person next to them. And you want to carry the lightest thing that's going to meet your particular need. The quiz talked a little bit about multi-purpose, and that's absolutely true whenever possible. If you can, we'll talk about tents in a little bit here, but there are styles of tents that use trekking poles as the poles. That obviously saves weight. So anything you can do that has multiple purposes is obviously going to reduce some weight. Build systems that work together, so synergize things. Cooking gear is one good example of that, where if your pot and your stove and your canister and all that kind of fits together and works together well, it's going to probably eliminate some weight, certainly bulk. And eliminating bulk eliminates weight because you can get away with a smaller pack. So having things that kind of work together is also important. And then, like we said, developing those skills is important. Having knowledge, for example, we'll talk about water. Knowing where the water is can help you reduce how much water you have to carry. So just your knowledge and skills can help a lot in reducing the weight of your pack. And finally, the last bullet there is one we added that we do a lot of group kind of work in the Sierra Club. And obviously, there's an opportunity to share. So anything that you can share with some other members of the group is obviously going to lighten your pack considerably. Okay. So on that first point, which is take inventory, you know, some people are going to look at this, which is a spreadsheet. It actually is a spreadsheet of my gear, and they're going to think maybe this is a little overly gear nerdy. But it really does open your eyes to what it is you're carrying and what it weighs. So it's basically just a long list of everything that's in my pack, what it weighs in ounces. Some people actually take it to grams, but I'm not quite there yet. So I can do it in ounces. And, you know, what it is. So, you know, little descriptions for my own purposes as to what that weighs. You know, it'll be kind of eye-opening for you to go through that exercise. Now, my list here, you'll notice, has actually two different sets of information. On the far right there, you can see what I've called winter leader equipment. So if I'm doing winter backpacking, I'm going to have, in some cases, some different gear, some heavier gear. And if I'm leading a trip, so I'm taking a group out, I also may have some different gear. I may carry a tarp, for example, if I'm leading a group trip. So I've actually got a kind of a range of my base weight for my pack. So we've posted an Excel spreadsheet, a blank one of this. I mean, it's got the items in it, but doesn't obviously have the weight and the descriptions. So if you're interested, you can download that from our website and go through this exercise. Go to the next slide. So once you've got that list, go through it and take a look at what are the heaviest items. When was the last time you actually used each of those items? So again, are you doing a little too much emergency or crisis thinking and carrying stuff that you haven't used in years and probably never will? And then what I like to do is compare my list to just some baselines. What are other people carrying? And I've included a couple of examples there, but if you go out and Google the topic, you'll find a zillion different pack lists for different weight ranges. And it's not so much that you want to duplicate any of those lists as you want to just learn from them and see what are other people taking or not taking. What kind of gear are they taking? What is your stuff weigh versus what their stuff weighs? And, you know, is it worth checking that out? And I've included two here. One is on backpacking.net, another interesting and useful resource. They list a 27-pound, 7-day pack list. That includes food and water, by the way. Food for 7 days, water for what they carry while they're hiking. So that's fairly impressive. It's about a 15-pound base weight. And then if you go out to Adventure Allen, if you haven't been out there, he's got actually a number of lists. He's got a 9-pound base weight pack list. That's not even his lightest pack list. He goes even lighter than that. So, and again, it's not so much that you want to duplicate it, because you really want to carry what's going to meet your needs for comfort, but try and learn from it. Learn what are other people not carrying that's maybe on your list, and what are things that, you know, yours is 5 pounds and theirs is a pound. What's going on here? What are they doing that you're not? So check out some of those resources or others that you find. Okay. Base weight is the weight of the pack itself and all of the items in the pack that don't change weight during the hike. So you'll hear us refer to base weight, and it basically just means it excludes your food, your fuel, and your water. So because those things are kind of variable and they change during the course. So base weight is that stuff that doesn't change: your tent, your sleeping bag, clothes, that sort of thing. So traditionally, that base weight probably would have been above 20 pounds. I told you on my first trip, the total pack weight was probably 45 or 50 pounds. So the base weight was probably much, much higher than 20. Lightweight is below 20 pounds. And there's nothing sacred about these terms. This is somebody's criteria here. Ultralight is below 10 pounds. Sub-ultralight is below 5 pounds. I personally think that's getting way out beyond my comfort zone anyway. My current base weight is about 16 or 17 pounds. In winter camping, if I'm leading a group, it's probably more like 20, maybe 21. So, I'm personally not at the ultralight level, at least yet, but certainly have made progress from where I was. You'll also hear the term the big three. These are the three probably heaviest things going into your pack, and that's your backpack and your shelter and your sleep system. So Brian's going to talk a little bit about those items.
Awesome. Thanks, Barry. A few notes there real quick. My first backpacking trip, I started at about 70 pounds.
Whoa. I feel better.
And that was my first backpacking trip was on the Appalachian Trail. By the time we got 10 days in, we mailed some things home and finished with about an average of 55 pounds. So things have progressed over the years. I've learned a few things, but just seeing your notes on weight there just made me really think about it. And I also was making note at your total checklist there, and it really drives home the point of the big three. And what we're talking about here is that, and these slides will be up so you could look at it later. But when we looked at the tent and the sleeping bag, the backpack, I'm not sure was on there, but all of those things being well into the double digits, where everything else, for the most part, was well under. And so that's where we come up with the big three here. So these are the three items that can reward you with the most weight savings. And we'll be starting with packs as far as that goes. Pack companies are constantly updating features, dropping pack weight, or improving fit. When we talk about comparing packs, take what we say as simply to illustrate a point. One is not always better than the other, of course. We picked these two packs because you can see the Alps pack is much beefier, designed to carry more weight with more features, heavier padding on the hip belt and shoulder straps, extra zippers, pouches, and pockets. Even the material looks tougher. And some packs have even fewer features. So if we look at the one on the left, if we were to take away organization, the brain, or the internal frame, take away the pockets, you can see as illustrated on this slide that it results in quite the overall weight savings. So the weight being up top there at under 2 pounds for the Osprey Levity and almost 6 pounds for the Alps Mountaineering. If you're going to carry a lighter load though, you can select a pack designated for a lighter load. The pack itself will weigh less at that point. So as you reduce your overall pack weight, you can often afford to have a lighter pack itself. And it can still be comfortable on the trail. So my recent trip to Yosemite would be a perfect example of this. I nearly saved 4 pounds by trying a new Hyperlite pack. I can tell you that when that pack was under 30 pounds, it was a pleasure. It was fantastic. When it was over 30 pounds, because we had a long stretch without water, it was quite a bear. And so knowing when to drop to that lighter pack level. We haven't included cost here, but in general, it's true that lighter weight gear with comparable function often costs more, higher tech materials and design. However, you can find reasonably lightweight options at reasonable prices. Expect your packs to range from 2 pounds to over 6 pounds. One YouTube video boasts a 9-pound base weight, complete gear list. So your pack, tent, sleeping bag, and everything. for under $650, which is really impressive. The second of the big three is going to be your shelter, typically tent, but we're going to learn it could be more than tent. Your tent may be the heaviest single item. Like packs, extra features on a tent, like large vestibules, multiple doors, or higher profiles will add to the total weight. However, the materials used in the poles and fabric will also make a big difference. High-tech materials like carbon fiber or Dyneema, like a Cuban fiber, are ultra light, but will also be more expensive. Expect your tents to range from sub 2 pounds to over 6 pounds while being still in the backpacking tent category. I'll note as well that there are no standards for a 1-person or 2-person tent when it comes to size. So you're better to compare dimensions when comparing tents, not just comparing 2 1-person tents. To really save some shelter weight, you may consider an alternative to a traditional dome-style tent. Shown here are several other popular choices. Tarps, for example, are versatile, lightweight, ventilate well, but are not as private or weatherproof, with no floor and no protection against insects. Consider where you are going and if this is going to do the job for you. Hammocks are a very popular option. Also lightweight and ventilate well, but require trees and often specialized gear like an underquilt to venture out into colder temps. So additional consideration before you pick that hammock up. Bivy sacks, also very lightweight at this point and waterproof, but can be very claustrophobic, offering no vestibule or living space. These are most often used as emergency use shelters. And then tent hybrids. So these can offer greater privacy and weather protection and often save weight by using trekking poles for support as opposed to tent poles. So make sure you are in an area that offers easy staking opportunities for this one, but you notice the tarp tent pictured there at the bottom. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds and ditch some of the bulk and the weight. And then the third of the big three is traditionally your sleeping bag. Or we'll go over a sleep system. When you're looking at a sleeping bag, down is the lightest and the most compressible insulation. Traditional down provides no insulation when wet, but hydrophobic down is now often used by manufacturers and does still provide some insulation. The higher quality down, the more expensive, but also the lighter and more compressible a bag will be. Synthetics are typically a little heavier, a little bulkier, but are going to be less expensive and retain warmth well when wet. And quilts are hugely popular now, provide insulation only over the sleeper, and so it's a good weight reduction as you're compressing any of the insulating fill while it's underneath you. We're cutting that out and relying on our sleeping pad for some underbody warmth, which we'll get to. So weight is not the only factor to consider for some gear, particularly a sleeping bag. Less bulk means a smaller pack can be used. And so again, less weight there if you're able to kind of drop to a smaller pack and save some weight that way as well. So again, going back to the fill quality or the down quality and being able to compress that more. And then we have to throw sleeping pads in there. Technically not in the big three, but as we're talking about sleep systems, I like to put them in there, and they're also going to be one of the next biggest opportunities for improvement in your pack, the other half of your sleep system. So closed cell foam pads are starting, left to right there, are going to be lightweight, inexpensive, super durable, just less comfortable, little bulky, usually strapped on the outside of the pack. If your back can still handle it, go for it. It's a great deal and super lightweight. Self-inflating pads are comfortable and can be compact, but are still heavier and can be a little bit more expensive. So this is a mixture of the foam and the air. It's typically just a little bulkier and heavier, but a little luxury option there for you. And while inflatable pads, our next option, are lightweight, They can still be very comfortable. They're going to be the most compact, and pay attention to what is called the R value, which is your insulating value on any sleeping pad. And they can have a pretty high R value, self-inflating pads as well, to these based off of how they build them. But the trade-off, of course, as Barry said, it's going to be more expensive. And you might have to care for it a little bit more depending on how lightweight you went with the sleeping pad, what materials it was made out of, taking that emergency repair kit with you. So maybe shopping for a pad between ½ pound and 2 pounds overall. Like everything else we discussed, you'll find your balance between comfort, cost, and weight. So pick your poison. And this is a good spot to stop.
Okay. If there are any questions, you can put them in the chat there. Nancy, have you seen anything yet?
I'm looking right now, Barry. Nope, I don't see any questions in there yet. If anybody has some, now just type away.
While we're seeing if anyone has a question, Brian, have you had much experience with the quilts?
Yeah, slight. I like the quilts, especially because I do a lot of winter. To me, the season just began, the backpacking season. And so just even an over quilt to add to a sleeping bag's value could be a big benefit, but also just in the summer, so you just need something lighter. Just a nice weight savings, cutting back on some bulk.
Yeah, I've started using my quilt more, and actually in colder weather, and actually been pretty comfortable. And I've also found that, I don't know, it seems less confining than a mummy bag. You know, I mean, the mummy bag is still great for really cold weather, but it just feels like a quilt is more natural. It's like you're under a blanket or something. So
you know what, Barry? We have a question. We have a question, but first I'm just going to weigh in on that for a second. What I have started doing is taking my 32-degree down bag and I open it all the way up and I put it over top of me like a quilt. So I can still put my feet in the feet. So it's like the foot box on a quilt, but then I have all of the down above me instead of any of it compressed underneath me. I'm kind of liking that.
Yeah.
We have 2 questions. Andy is asking what kind of scale you use for weighing your equipment. A bathroom scale, luggage scale, a scale, if you want to grab that question.
Yeah, I actually use a kitchen scale. So both a bathroom scale and a luggage scale aren't very precise. So I actually use one of it's a flat, sits on a counter. It's maybe 8 inches square. I use it for cooking to weigh things, but it's great because you can measure accurately ounces and grams, and you really want to get down to at least ounces. Now it's a little small for a bulky item, but as you probably know, with most scales, you can actually put something on top of it and then reset it to 0. So you can take a fairly small kitchen scale. I put like a big plastic bowl on top of it, reset it to 0, and then I can like put a tent in it or anything, you know, sleeping bag, whatever, and it'll weigh it very accurately to, you know, like 1/10 of an ounce. So that's what I use. I don't know if anyone else has suggestions.
That's what I also use, Barry. And then I also have a specific one for weighing the complete pack when it's filled that I also use once it's...
Yeah, actually that's a good point. Once the pack's all packed, I'll often weigh it with a luggage or a fish scale. I find a fish scale works well too.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
So just a comment from Barb to everybody is that she has used a baby scale because it has a pretty large pan. So that would be another way to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's another question here for probably for Brian. Nancy is asking, do you tuck in the quilt around the sleeping pad in the winter?
Yeah, so even not in the winter, I think a good quality for one of the quilts to have is at the very least tabs on the side, or maybe they've already pre-run some very lightweight webbing so that it clips around your sleeping pad or clips on around the underneath of your sleeping pad, because the whole system is reliant on you staying on your pad, and the pad has a good R value to keep you warm, and that the quilt then wraps the pad so that there's no cold spots coming in from the sides either. So I would caution, if there's not a way to do that, I think with most quilts that there's at least you could tie your own if it doesn't come with ties or clips. And then I think Barry said it, but a foot box, a lot of them will still have a sewn foot box to it. I think that's pretty still critical in a quilt as well.
Yeah, the ones I'm familiar with, and of course, like anything, they come in all different styles, is they usually have a short, lightweight zipper, you know, maybe thinking maybe like 18 inches, maybe 12 inches at the bottom, that allows you to zip it and create a foot box. And some will actually also have a pull string that closes up the bottom, so your feet are actually in like a little sleeping bag. The quilts then line on top of you, and to Brian's point, they usually come with some kind of lightweight elastic or something that goes around underneath your sleeping pad and kind of keeps that quilt from sliding off you and kind of tucked in around you.
So a couple more questions here for you guys, for whoever wants to take them. Barb is asking, what are the quilts made of? We'll tackle that one, and then I've got 2 follow-up questions to that.
So quilts that I'm familiar with are basically the same material as a sleeping bag. So there's some kind of lightweight, you know, nylon or some synthetic fabric, and then usually down, but I'm sure they also have synthetic quilts, but the ones I've seen are down. So essentially the same materials as a sleeping bag, just slightly different construction. Doesn't have the hood, and you know, doesn't have, I guess, half of the insulation.
And then a couple of questions about sleeping pads here. So Nancy is asking, do most pads keep you warm from the bottom, such as tensor? I'm not sure exactly what she means by that. So, oh, wait a minute. Maybe to clarify, she says, does the pads keep you warm with the quilt on top? Ah, okay, yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
So the tensor is just, I think that might have been on Barry's list. So that's Nemo makes a pad called the tensor. And so you just want to pay attention to its R value, and that's going to give you an understanding of how well it insulates you from the bottom up. So even on a warm day, the ground might still be cold. Maybe it hasn't thawed out yet. You still need a higher R value to protect you from the cold coming up and into your body. So if you were to lay just directly on the ground, you just feel that, you know, even if you just have a elbow fall off the sleeping pad, it might wake you up and you would just immediately feel that cold kind of, your body is sucking it up, right? So that's what the pad's protecting you from. And so if you have that with a quilt over top protecting you from the air, that will typically do the trick, but they'll make different levels. So the tensor has a regular pad and then a more insulated version of itself. And so just kind of knowing which version and then how cold you might be, you know, how cold the trip might be and where your comfort level is.
And we have another pad question. This one is from Kevin, and he's asking you, Brian, as a 4-season camper, is there any closed cell foam pad that you can use in 10 to 20 degree Fahrenheit weather that you won't be miserable sleeping on? He's been burned by inflatables and isn't eager to try them again.
Yeah, Kevin, good question. I think you're just really pushing it in the 10 to 20 degree range. I think most the closed cells I've seen come close to a 3 R value, which is really just like that 3-season range in my opinion. It's, you know, 40s and 50s. You could do a few things though. You could double something up. So if you're taking like a Z seat or something like that, a foam seat, and just kind of reinforce your heavier weight areas, your shoulders, your hips, something like that. That's where you're typically going to press through. I know people to do that even, you know, put their feet up on a pack and double up the foam. Maybe you get a large and kind of fold it over so your shoulders reinforced and then put the Z seat under your hips. But I think as a standalone, the closed cell foam is going to be tough to get you to that level, unfortunately.
And then a comment from
Sometimes
John.
for cold weather.
Go ahead, Barry, sorry.
Oh, I was just kind of weigh in that, you know, sometimes for cold weather, I'll bring my air mattress, you know, a Neo, something like that, or a Tensor. But I also want something to sit on out by the fire. And of course, if the ground's colder, there's snow, closed cell, you know, Z-pad or something like that works really well to sit on. But at night, you can actually slide that under an air mattress. And if you double up like that, now obviously you're carrying two things, but they're slightly different purposes. You really
Uh-oh, we're losing you, Barry. Hey,
Yeah.
Barry?
if you can afford to combine. Yeah, you can hear me
Barry?
now?
Yeah, now you're back, yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, my point was if you can afford, if you are carrying both for other reasons, both a closed cell and an air mattress make a good combination.
And Kevin has added another comment that says it's filed under Tom Brown Field Guide to Wilderness Survival Tips. Piling leaf material under your tent adds R value to your sleep system and cost 0, which is a good point. So
Thank
are we
you
ready?
for that too. It's also a better leave no trace tip with the leaves. I've been in situations or shared camps where somebody's taking pine boughs or something of the sort, which totally works in a survival situation, but isn't a good leave no trace practice. So
Yeah, very good point.
leaves way more natural.
You guys ready to move on?
Okay.
Okay. I think Barry. Oh, Barry, you're frozen. Barry, are you ready for your slides? Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know what's going on here, but okay. So a little bit beyond the big three.
So I was talking about some popular backpacking meal choices. One of them are the prepackaged or freeze-dried meals, and these are like Mountain House, Alpine Air, and they're very lightweight. You can also create your own dehydrated foods and freezer bag meals. Essentially the homemade equivalent of freeze-dried meals where you just add boiling water. I myself am really partial to those because I can make the calories what I need for myself, which is usually much less than what the prepackaged things provide. And I also can then season them the way I like them, so I really want to eat the whole thing. They can be made with homemade dehydrated foods or foods from the grocery store, things like ramen noodles, minute rice, couscous. And then also there are no-cook meals. Some of them are things that just don't have to be cooked at all, and some are things that, like couscous and minute rice, that can actually be rehydrated just by letting them soak longer in cold water. And those also eliminate even more weight because you don't have to carry a stove or fuel. So for the greatest weight savings, you want to avoid fresh foods or packaged foods that contain water. Also avoid foods that take extended boiling or simmering because obviously they require more fuel if you have to boil them longer, and that means you have to carry more fuel. So another good tip is for longer trips to just figure out what your resupply opportunities might be. For example, on the Appalachian Trail, you hardly ever need to carry more than 2 to 3 days worth of food because there are so many places where you can stop and get off the trail to resupply. This is another example of knowledge and planning, being able to save weight in your pack. And we didn't mention a few of the most popular foods with ultralight packers, things like honey buns and Snickers. Typically, these hikers get away with this menu by stopping in town periodically for pizza and burgers and ice cream. But I've also seen AT through hikers who will just carry like a jar of peanut butter, and that's what they'll eat until the peanut butter's gone, and they'll stop and get another jar of peanut butter, which is an interesting way to do it. We're going to be talking about dehydrated and freezer bag meals in greater length in a couple of November webinars, so we won't spend any more time on this part of the lightweight topic here. So we're going to switch over to stoves now. And stoves are always a popular gear topic among backpackers. And here are a few common stove options. Note that the Jetboil and the MSR Rocket Pocket kit that are shown here include the pot. and the others don't. So you have to remember that you're going to add at least another 3 or 4 ounces of weight for a pot for the other options that are on there. The alcohol stove is clearly still the lightest, but it does have long boil times. We're going to talk about alcohol fuel in a minute. And while boil time is about the same for canister stoves, the other question impacting pack weight is fuel consumption. In other words, just how efficient is the stove? So you can kind of get a sense of all of those pieces of information, how they compare to each other. The jet boil weighs 13.1 ounces. Boil time for 1 liter is 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Pocket Rocket is a little bit lighter and the boil time is the same. And I have to move something on my screen here so I can see the other side. Sorry about this. We're doing our best to improvise here. Okay, on the Whisper Light, the stove and pump only, 10.9 ounces, boil time 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Remember, you have to add some additional weight for the pot and for the canister, I think. Let's see, it's got the stove and the pump only. So the can that the fuel goes into as well as the pot would have to be added to the weight. And then notice the difference in the boil time down at the bottom right-hand corner for the alcohol burner, 5 to 7 minutes to boil 1 liter of water. So those are all factors that will all in one way or another impact the weight of your cook system. Okay, so then the next is we've got a chart here that shows the quarts of water boiled with each type of stove with 4 ounces of fuel. The wind, or the blue bar, is under calm conditions, and the red bar is if it's windy, and white is if it's windy and using a windscreen. So clearly the wind makes a big difference in how efficiently the fuel is going to, the stove is going to burn the fuel. And some of them inherently are going to burn more. If you take a look, you can see all the way on the right-hand side, the jet boil is showing to be the most efficient in terms of fuel consumption under all those conditions. So let's see. Note the difference in fuel consumption with windy conditions can be almost double. The windscreen will help a whole lot, and the integrated system like the jet boil handles the wind and everything much better. So the jet boil is the most fuel efficient. It's 3 times the Pocket Rocket in windy condition, but that doesn't necessarily make it the best. Regardless of stove choice, know your stove's efficiency and carry the right amount of fuel. I think we have another chart here coming up. Yeah, comparative stove fuel efficiency. So low heat output is why alcohol stoves take so much longer to boil water. For short trips, an alcohol stove cook system will be hands down the lightest weight of type of stove or cook system to carry, thanks to the incredibly light weight of the stove itself, even though you have to carry more fuel. For longer trips, the canister fuel efficiency starts to overcome the stove weight. So for a general rule of thumb, if you're going to be cooking more than 10 meals in the backcountry, a lightweight canister stove system may be lighter overall than even an alcohol system because of the greater fuel efficiency. And this is especially true if 2 or 3 people consider sharing a canister stove. Because of the long boil times, it's much more awkward to share an alcohol stove. But despite the high output of white gas, the weight of the liquid stove system means it's overall the heaviest choice. But again, this one works better than the others in cold weather, and it's a good choice for international travel or if you want to do any fancier cooking. Some of the others are basically good just for heating water. That's what they work for best. Okay, going to move on here now to water treatment. So some popular water treatment options are shown on this chart. The Sawyer Mini, tablets, Grail Press, the MSR MiniWorks, and MSR Guardian. The Sawyer or equivalent is a popular choice with lightweight backpackers. And tablets are super light, but they're slower and more expensive. However, they do make a really good emergency backup choice. Some of the other options might be good for group choice though, if you're going to be filtering water for a large number of people. What about carrying your water? So some popular water carrying options are hydration reservoirs. They're extremely convenient for drinking water on the trail because that cord just lays over your shoulder and you can just stick the straw in your mouth anytime that you want without having to stop or fuss with it. Nalgene's are nice because they're virtually indestructible, and also because you can pour hot water in them. So like when you're winter camping and you want to warm up the foot of your sleeping bag before you get in, you can fill that Nalgene with boiling water, slip it down inside a wool sock and stick it down in your pack. And that's a nice little bonus to a Nalgene. But in terms of just sheer weight, it's hard to beat a smart water bottle. So you buy these at the grocery store, and after you drink the water that comes in it, they're sturdy enough that they last for quite a while. I mean, eventually they'll start to get beaten up and you'll have to buy another bottle of water. But it's super light, it's easy to carry around your pack. Knowing where to find the water means you only carry what you need. My very first backpacking trip, it was crazy. We really didn't know what we were doing. And we weren't sure about water. So we decided to try to carry all the water that we needed, which meant we started off with 6 liters of water per person. And at 2.2 pounds per liter, that was just the most ridiculous thing we could have done. You really don't want to carry more than you need. Water is really heavy. So this is another great example where skill and knowledge will help you save weight. And then there's feet. Dress for success. So layers, layers, layers. No duplication. And this is Barry's note says no exception. His exception rather is socks. And like him, I always make sure I have a spare pair of socks. At least one spare pair of socks. Usually only one. Perhaps clean underwear would go on my list as well. But choose layers based on the forecast. So a heavier base layer, for example, for colder weather in the winter, and choose materials that are light and warm. So wool, fleece, down, and synthetics. And those are all materials that will insulate even if they get wet. Down is not. Down is not good if it gets wet, unless it's the hydrophobic down, and even that is, the wool, the fleece, and the synthetics are better options if you're likely to be getting wet. And also those materials will wick the water, wick the dampness away from your skin. And then there's the feet, and you can see here there's a pair of relatively heavy hiking boots on the left. They also have Fugitive GTX hiking boots that weigh 3 pounds and 2 ounces. But on the right-hand side, you see a pair of low hiking shoes by Arc'teryx that weigh 1 pound and 8 ounces. So the weight on your feet requires 4 to 6 times more energy than the weight that's on your back. So swapping a 3-pound pair of boots for a 1-pound pair of boots is the energy saving equivalent of removing 8 to 12 pounds from your pack. That information came from cleverhiker.com. However, there are times when you need the heavier boots. Barry put these particular shoes on this slide because he says he owns both. He uses both. He uses the boots in winter or sloppy conditions, but the shoes clearly dominate in terms of lightweight and through hiking use when the terrain and the weather permits. Okay, so I think we're at the point here. We've concluded the formal part of the presentation, but we would like to ask you to hang around for just a few more minutes. For starters, if we can have Denise launch another poll here, you will help us by giving us an idea of how many new ideas, how helpful you found this webinar to be. This is our first year doing these virtually, so your feedback will help us make improvements and give you do things in the future that will really benefit people the most. And while you're completing this last poll, I'll mention again that we're going to post a link to the PDF copy of the sheet and also the page where you'll find Barry's packing list, that spreadsheet. And you'll be able to download those for yourself if you want to review them. And within the next few days, there should also be a recording of this posted in case you want to go back and review. In just a few minutes, we're going to open up our live Q&A, and we'll unmute everybody at that time so that you can ask your questions live. So while you're thinking about those questions, we also want to let you know we have a couple more webinars for this year, and then we're going to take a break for the holidays over December, and we'll start up with some new topics in January and February. So if there is a particular topic that you'd be interested in, we'd like to ask you to please use the chat box to tell us about that as well. And then next spring, probably sometime in March or so, we'll start the series over again. So if you missed anything or missed any of our earlier sessions, you'll have a chance to join us for those. A couple more things here. I'm going to just, Denise, want to go ahead and end the polling, I think, and okay, we'll just put that one away. Thank you. And I'll move on. I just need to get that off my screen. So if you love the outdoors as much as we do, we'd love to have you guys join us exploring, enjoying, and protecting the planet. Some easy ways that you can do that are become a Sierra Club member. If you like the work that you see being done and would like to support it financially, we'd love to have donation. We'd really like to have you join our meetup group if you haven't done that already. And if you're on there, you'll get notices of everything that gets scheduled that we're going to do together as an outings committee. Or become a volunteer. And there are links on this slide that will be on the PowerPoint that you can, again, download yourself. We'll put a link to that in the chat box shortly. And then lastly, if you're already an experienced outdoor person with skills to share, we would love to have you join us on the outings committee. We are looking for outings leaders who have a passion for sharing their experience with others. Right now, we're doing it virtually through our webinar series, but someday we'll get to the other side of this pandemic and we'll be back out on the trails and waterways in person again. And I will tell you that we have a lot of fun on the outing committee, and we'd love to have you join us. I hope you would consider doing that. Okay, so this presentation has been brought to you by Roads, Rivers, and Trails, our local independently owned outdoor outfitter in Milford, Ohio, by Miami Group Sierra Club, a part of the country's largest grassroots environmental movement, and by Summit Truck and Travel, your connection for adventure travel. So we're about ready to begin our Q&A. If you have to log off now, we know we're right at 8:30. It has been great to be here with you, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar, which will be, I think, November 5th is the date. Is that the right date? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. So if you have to leave us, we'll look forward to seeing you in the future. And for everyone who can stay with us, I'm going to attempt to set this up now so that you can all unmute yourselves. You should now be able to unmute yourself, and I'm also going to stop sharing the screen so that we can see each other. Makes it a little nicer when we're actually talking back and forth. And okay, so we're now live. Did Barry come back? Hi, Barry.
I am back. Thank you, Nancy. You did an excellent job pitch hitting. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure what's happened, but
you probably
did a great job.
You probably have a big cloud over your house or something. It was just like blocking
know.
the rays. Yeah. So I haven't checked the chat box to see if we have, oh, we do have some chats. What do we have in there? Let's see. Oh goodness, there's a bunch. I am moving up here.
Guys,
Okay.
It was good conversation on sleeping pads for pets. So
Yeah.
you had anything to add there, Denise, Barry, Nancy? Or even if the pet is sleeping in the tent with you.
Yeah, so what was your advice on that, Brian? Did you have?
I would caution against inflatable pads, unfortunately. But if you're going to do one, if you want the comfort of an inflatable pad and they're going to share a bed with you, like it or not, just not trying to go too lightweight with it, just something a little bit more robust.
And bring a repair kit.
And bring a repair kit.
And maybe a whole roll of duct tape or something, right?
Yeah. Trim some nails before going out, and some pet claws.
Yeah. I saw the suggestion in there for the Z-Rest or something like that. That certainly seems a better fit to me.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Kevin, if we could stay on the call briefly afterwards. Yeah, we'll have a chat. Happy to do that. Let's see. Vicky, agree with Kevin. Foam pad. Do we have anything else in here? Have a Neo Air, no dogs yet. Oh, discuss recommended backpacking trips within about a 300-mile radius. There we go. Toss that out to everybody. Barry, Brian, Denise.
Or as a separate presentation. I don't know if that was for now or as a separate. I think that would be a great talk
Actually, it would be. You're right. We could go into a lot more
Yeah,
detail.
I think
for
actually
the-
that was, that showed up on one of our brainstorm lists as potential future talks.
Say
Okay.
5 hours of Cincinnati-ish or
Right.
something,
Yeah.
something of the sort.
Right.
Okay, I got it. Okay.
But I don't know, was that individual whoever was asking that, did they want something right now?
That was Ella. Were you
Oh.
looking for information right now? Ella, are you still on the call? Oh, she's not on there. Yeah, there she is.
Yeah, we were looking for something in the future as a presentation. Yeah,
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, great idea. Thank you.
thank you.
And Barb, is that also your contribution here for it'd be good to hold a how-to on dehydrating foods? Yes.
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of touch on that a little bit on the next
Yeah.
the next
Actually,
one we have.
in 2 weeks, we'll be doing quite a bit of that is on dehydrating food.
So how's that for answering your wishes like
Yeah,
immediately,
there you go.
right?
Very next session.
Let's see. GPS stuff, Gaia, all trails, whatever. Okay.
I think that's a great idea, Kevin. If
Yeah.
that would be fantastic to have one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, if we don't have any additional questions to be answered right now, we'll certainly. I always get a printout. I don't know if I shared that with you guys, but I always get a printout of the text. So we've already captured those notes, and I'll be able to share them with everyone, all of the instructors. So it's been awesome having you all.